Welcome to Psychos and Sociopaths. Today we're going to talk about Richard Francis Cottingham, and his nicknames are the Torso Killer, New York Jack the Ripper, the Butcher of Times Square, and he was just an all-around sick person.
Yeah,
He was he was
he was into some shit.
He what was it? Well, not as much as Alan's Finch, but I'm not even going to do him because that guy was really sick. This is a more of a, what do you call him? Sadist.
Yeah, yeah, he definitely liked to, from what I was able to find, he definitely liked to inflict pain.
Yeah.
While the victims were still alive. So
He from now on this part right here, I'm kind of like conflicted on the number of victims because I got one side that says 6, I've got one side that says 9, but overall he even claims that he had like 85 to 100 people that he've actually killed.
well, I know that when a lot of the source material was written, there was 9 confirmed,
Yeah.
and then the FBI thinks that there's anywhere up to including 100, and then that number got beefed up a little bit or boosted a little bit once we get to that material about Dita Gazari's daughter
Yeah.
befriending him. But yeah, I mean, he definitely, he was pretty active. That first year, I think he was more kind of like dipping his toes in the water, and then that 5-year period or for a 3-year period from 77 to 80, it was when he really got into the swing of things and ultimately got caught. But
Yeah, the first person that he actually killed and murdered and raped, uh, she was just coming back from a bingo tournament.
yeah, Nancy Vogel, yeah.
Yeah. And then you have the really one that was documented.
Yeah, that was Marianne Carr.
No, it was the Kuwaiti.
Well, yeah, the Kuwaiti girl, the Deidre Gazari, but the victim that was found the most whole, the least mutilated, was Marianne Carr. She was not a prostitute, which kind of went against his MO.
Yeah.
She was dumped by a chain link fence near the New Jersey motel that he had used before.
Yeah.
So, but she, I mean, she wasn't, she wasn't she wasn't dismembered in any shape, way, form, or fashion. She was still handcuffed. They found bite marks all over the place, found slices from, where he cut on her. But yeah, she was, the one thing that he was consistent throughout, though, was strangling his victims. But yeah, it started off with Nancy Vogel. I wasn't able to find a whole lot of information about Nancy Vogel.
The only thing I was able to find is she was basically she was with friends. She went to a bingo tournament. She went missing after that, and come to find out, it was just they didn't even know what was going on at that point in time.
Yeah, yeah, and she was 29,
Yeah.
mother of 2, and they found her nude. Well, yeah, they found her nude, and I think it was after that one, with the exception of Deidre Gazari, he would cut off their hands and their heads,
Yeah.
so that way, it was in his mind, he was skirting criminal charges because they couldn't identify the bodies.
Yeah, because the Dita
Gazari.
Gazari, that one, the only reason why they found the first instance they found the bodies on that one, it was because he tried to light them on fire, and the fire department found it and found the bodies and everything like that, and they were still able to ID them through X-rays.
Yeah, yeah, it was yeah, that was, I did see that where they had used X-rays to identify a couple of the other ones. But yeah, I mean, he was he was definitely kind of into it, because like I said, 67 was his first year, and then there was that 10-year break, and then in 77 to 80 he really ramped it up.
What's really, it's not really surprising to me but the wife was still married and up until his arrest. He
I
had a
think,
wife and kids.
yeah, well, yeah, they're, yeah. I think the divorce. I don't. I
It
wasn't.
was 79.
79 was when it final.
And then he was arrested in 79. The month of his arrest,
May 22nd of 1980.
that's when she filed divorce papers and
Yeah.
everything like that.
Yeah, and then after that, his family really kind of dropped off the grid. Not that I blame him, but
Yeah, if something like that happened to me, and I'm like, "Oh, your dad's the blah."
yeah,
No, I'm going home.
I know that looking through like his convictions, the one for Nancy Vogel, um, and I think there was like a litany of some other charges and stuff like that too.
Yeah,
Because
it
they
was.
tried him for Nancy Vogel along with his last attempted victim, who was Leslie Ann Odell, when he was arrested on May 22nd of 80, because she actually got away.
Yeah, she got away. She had bite marks.
Yeah, he almost bit off one of her nipples.
Yeah.
She was bound. He'd actually taken her. What is the information I found on that here? She was soliciting on the corner of Lexington Avenue and 25th Street, New York City. She agreed to have sex with him for $100, and around dawn, they checked into the Hasbrook Heights Quality Inn. I think that's New Jersey, actually, where he had left his last mutilated victim. He offered to give her a massage. She rolled over on her stomach, and then he drew a knife, put it to her throat, and he snapped on a pair of handcuffs on her. Began torturing her, nearly biting off one of her nipples, and she later testified, "You have to take it. The other girls did. You have to take it too. You're a whore, and you have to be punished," end quote. And there was a ton of charges, like kidnapping, attempted murder, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, aggravated sexual assault while armed, aggravated sexual assault while armed sodomy, aggravated sexual assault while armed fellatio.
I had to look that one up.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie.
but yeah, possession of weapon, possession of controlled dangerous substances, and just like you last week, I'm not. Yeah, it's SECOBARBITAL, sorbitol, and amorbital, and tunile. It's and basically they're barbiturates,
Yeah.
obviously, and possession of controlled dangerous substances. He had diazepam and Valium, and those the Odell case along with the Vogel case led to his first initial sentencing in '81. They sentenced him to 173 to 197 years in prison.
Yeah, he should have just been off.
Well, I think too, a lot of that was around that time we started seeing more and more people, some or more of these civil liberty groups, start to spring up around the country, and they started challenging the death penalty.
Yeah.
And I think New York was one of those first places that had the death penalty challenged. And in his particular case, I think that the district attorney was really more trying to, not necessarily pad his numbers, but I think he was wanting to keep him alive, so that way later on he knew he had all these cold cases out there. And just with the way that Nancy Vogel was killed, all these other horrific murderers that had the same MO attached to him, he was like, we'll keep him alive long enough to try to tie everything else. Yeah. So
I can see that. But no, the reason why he actually got arrested is because he used the same hotel or motel.
Yeah, motel, yeah.
And the murder that was found prior, the staff actually was like, "Oh, they were skittish, and they called the police after."
Some noise complaints, yeah.
Yeah, noise complaints. And
yeah, they didn't recognize him when they came back in with that girl, with Odell.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until she started screaming and it got loud enough to where the hotel staff was like, yeah. So they called the police, and they actually, he had left the room and was walking down the hall when the police stopped him.
Which is really sad because because most serial killers, they'll do the same MO. Very rarely do they go out of their box. and I say box, I mean the places where they go, because sometimes they don't want to get caught.
Yeah.
And if actually they do want to get caught, they'll keep the same MO and they'll go back.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times they want that same endorphin of what they actually got from the original place.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they may change certain things, but there's going to be that strain of familiarity or commonality that it's almost like their calling card.
Yeah. And I actually, there is a YouTube out there, if you can find it, that you have to like click like 5 different things to even watch it, of all the gruesome stuff I'm not even, it's that bad. I won't even put it in a link with our video, because
Right.
it's just that horrible what he actually did. Because you just see bodies half burnt. You can have bodies that are half burnt. I'm not even going to put the photos in here, because I work corrections, and I've seen some horrible stuff, to the point to where there was a guy that wasn't responding, and as I say responding, I mean he was being very aggressive, and he was trying to kill himself. And what we were supposed to do, and anytime they're actually trying to kill themselves, you're supposed to spray him with CS gas, and then you go in after that's done, and you make sure that he's still alive, because that was our doing that job, is keep them alive. But what had happened is they sprayed him, and apparently he had some kind of flammable. He had a flame open, and the gas is basically oil.
Yeah.
And it was just like a flamethrower, and he was just burnt to a crisp. And I still looked at the photos. I got like halfway through that video. And it was a 4-minute video. I got like 2 minutes into it, and they started showing that stuff, and I'm like, I know that's real people.
Yeah.
That's what it clicked. I mean, I watch horror movies and I watch gore and everything like that, but once you realize it's actual real people, your mind clicks on that. And I was just like, nope, not today.
Yeah. Yeah, not today, ISIS, but and you see our show here, what is it, on December 2nd of 79. Firemen in New York responded to an alarm at a hotel near Times Square, which is where he gets his other nickname.
Yeah.
They forced their way inside and put the fire out, and they found 2 corpses. Both bodies had their hands and heads removed, and they had been doused with lighter fluid and set afire. The missing body parts were never found. And that was another thing too, with Guzari. She was 22. She was an immigrant from Kuwait. Now, when they say she was an immigrant from Kuwait, her family was actually fleeing Iran, and then they went into Kuwait, and then they flew to the U.S. from there. But she was working as a prostitute. She was one of the bodies that was identified.
And I know their daughter was going in to talk to him, and we'll get into the rest of that. But she just wanted her mother's skull, so she can actually bury it with her mother.
Well, they had the body to bury, and I think from the research that I did on Jennifer Weiss, which is the daughter's name, she wanted some kind of closure.
Of course, she was, I think about 2, because her parents told her she was adopted when she was 4.
Yeah, and so, but she went into it, without going down that road yet. She had to build up. I mean, she started writing him initially, and she had to build up a lot of forgiveness in her heart too. But before going in there, because she admitted in an interview that she just wanted to thrash him. She wanted to go in there and just like beat the crap out of him. And
that's the only thing about having a shorter.
Yeah, well, it's whatever. But it's with that, I mean, she just wanted closure, and she went into it with the mindset of befriending him to get information from him. Because she wanted to find out more about her mother. Because I mean, being 2 years old, she never, you don't start retaining memories until you're like 5 or 3 or 5, I forget.
3 or 5, yeah.
Yeah, but um, the Dita Gazari, she was one of the more high profile ones because that's where the dismembering really started to take place. And um, let me see here. There was another victim on May 5th of 1980. Police found 19-year-old Valerie Ann Street at a Quality Inn in Hasbrook Heights. So that Hasbrook Quality Inn, I mean that was kind of his go-to spot.
Yeah.
You know.
I guess it was a cheap motel.
Yeah.
Because
It
paid by the hour.
Yeah, it was kind of like an inconvenient from what I was able to see. Um, it was there, but the location was horrible. Like it was inconvenient even for the hookers that would work up in that area. And so it was relatively secure as far as like being able to go in and stay the night, not have to worry about stray bullets coming in or John's getting serviced.
Yeah, because that time frame, Times Square was like a massive. There, who was it? There was a.
Well, also being in New Jersey, it was across the river too. So
yeah. No, it was. Rob Zombie.
Yeah.
And when he went there in the 80s, and this is the 80 time frame. This is not the 60s or 70s. This is how bad it was back in that time frame. Is like in the 80s, he went down in Times Square and he saw his first murder because someone just popped somebody out on Times Square.
Mm-hmm.
New York was not at all the safest place.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. It was a civilized Wild West, basically.
Yeah, it more or less. That's where the time frame for like 60s to I want to say about close to the 90s. They had that killing spree to where New York was the worst place, other than I can't even say like a war zone. Because that's what basically it was. It's almost like
modern day Chicago, yeah.
Yeah, south side of Chicago.
Yeah. But with Valerie Street, and they found her at that Quality Inn, her hands were tightly handcuffed behind her back. She was covered in bite marks and beaten across the shins. She died of asphyxiation, and traces of adhesive tape were found on her mouth. And so, I mean, I've got a little bit of information on the next victim, which is that Marianne Carr, but and then there's also Jean Rayner. Let me see here. But yeah, I mean, there's just so much information out there about him, and depending on what source you get it from, it I mean, they hit it from all different kinds of angles, and I don't know why his the research done on him was just so diverse. I'm not. Maybe it's because he's like newer or whatever. But plus with the fact that we also had now with his particular case, they started bringing in the forensic evidences and stuff like that. But
yeah, because they didn't start doing a lot of the profiling of killers until like I want to say probably around about 60s to 70s.
Yeah.
They didn't start doing like serial killer profiles. That was actually the time frame. What a lot of people don't understand is a lot of the language that we have right now is from like the 60s to 70s. We didn't have the term serial killer until that time frame. And people actually started figuring out, it's like, hey, these murders have MOs.
Mm-hmm.
And they would just go, oh, he's just a mass murderer, and that's how it. That's the same term of genocide. Genocide, the word didn't come around until like 1920.
Yeah.
And that was only because the genocide of the Armenians against the Turks.
Right.
Which is really funny coming around. We have YouTube channels now called the Young Turks, and they're totally bashing people and everything like that. And I'm like, they don't know. It's like calling themselves the Young Hitlers.
Yeah.
And I was like, no.
Well, I mean, when you break it down, anybody, you get these anti-fascists, and, not to get political, but you get these anti-fascist groups that come out and they use physical violence and intimidation to change the viewpoints of people that don't agree with them. Like, don't you see the irony there? That by you doing the exact thing that you rail against, that makes you the thing that you hate the most. But they refuse to see it because, for whatever reason, they're, what's the word I'm looking for? Uh, sheep? Sheeple?
Sheeple, yeah.
Sheeple.
But I lost my train of thought.
Well, you know what I found kind of interesting, like during his string of murders, you know, they had all these other cases that they were trying to link somewhere. They were trying to solve. And we had talked about Jennifer Weiss, which is Gazzari's daughter.
Yeah.
He through his relationship with her, she's been getting him to open up, and he admitted to 3 more murders. As a matter of fact, last year, he admitted to killing an additional 3 women. These were all teenagers or teen women, 19, 20. Jacqueline Harp of Midland Park, Irene Blas of Bogota, and Denise Falsco of Cloister. He strangled them all in the late 60s. So, you know, the 9 confirmed that we had, to include that Jane Doe, that was found when Gazzari was found. But, you know, he's now up to what, 11? So, or 12. He's up to 12 if you count like 9. So yeah, so it's like 12 people during that time span.
Did he ever divulge how where he actually threw the bodies afterwards?
No. Even
I
though that, I
couldn't find that either.
Yeah, they. Let me see here. Let me see. There was an exhaustive and extensive search of the police for, you know, I mean, they searched rivers. I mean, for all intents and purposes, he might have driven outside of his operating area and just dumped them in a trash can or dumped them in a dumpster in an alleyway somewhere. Because the sanitation services then, I mean, all they would do is just go by, pick them up, dump them into their trucks, and then just haul them out to the landfill. And, you know, I bet if you were to take some, you know, cadaver dogs or whatever out to the landfill, wherever, New York City, New Jersey.
No matter what, you're going to find some bodies.
Yeah, you're going to find some bodies. I mean, you know, they're probably there, you know, but, you know, it's either that or, you know, he just burned them, you know, threw them in a incinerator somewhere. And, you know, the only thing left now is just residual ash.
Yeah, because the only job that he actually had throughout this whole killing spree is he was working at New York's Blue Cross Blue Shield, and he actually chose the 3 to 11 p.m. shift so he could actually do his killings in the morning after work at night.
Yeah.
And on the weekends.
Yeah, computer, and he worked there from 1966 until 1980 when he was arrested.
Yeah, his father got him the job.
Yeah, you know, and
just to show that some serial killers are just basically normal until you actually pull the layers of the onion.
Yeah, you know, or you could say that you know, don't mess with people that you know, people that work in call centers, just, they're not right, man. You know, but in all seriousness,
I worked in a call center.
Well, so did I. So did I. But in fact, I used to work for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas, so.
Yeah.
No, I'm just messing. But, you know, but yeah, working for Blue Cross Blue Shield in New York from 1966 until 1980. So, I mean, he had been there for, you know, a while. And, you know, it's just, you know, I mean, I'm sure if we were to take like an entire week and a half, 2 weeks to just devote to this guy and just do the digging and find, I'm sure we'd find so many details, you know, but with...
I mean, we would have to read the book that was...
there were several books.
Yeah, there's several books
Yeah.
about it. I'll look them up and put them in the details. on that one.
Yeah, let me see here.
Which I been forthcoming and actually putting in the details, even though
Yeah.
half my videos. Yeah, I put in the details.
Up until Jennifer Weiss started talking to Cottingham, he denied any of the murders. Um,
Oh, he's one of those people too.
yeah, even though they found some of the victim's belongings in his home and even had a fingerprint on a pair of handcuffs used to restrain one of the victims, the only thing he ever admitted to was, quote, I have a problem with women. Yeah. So, but,
I couldn't get. I That was another thing I couldn't find is why he had a problem with women.
I,
Because all the websites and everything that I went through to get all the information and everything, it didn't divulge what was his problem with women.
yeah, I couldn't find any of that either. And I mean, I even tried to do, some digging around as far as like the Freudian angle where, it's like, tell me about your mother. I mean, I'm sure it had to
'Cause
do with some kind of like childhood traumas.
Yeah, he had like a perfect family life that I could tell.
Yeah.
It was one of those people that he was just spawn of Satan, and you just gotta have to deal with that.
Yeah. I mean, something, there had to have been, you would think some kind of just traumatic experience along the way that we're not privy to, or that somebody just, it may be just as simple as nobody thought to ever devote that kind of time to figuring out why, but
Yeah, I didn't even see any kind of thing like, oh, he used to mutilate animals. He did this. He was this. I mean, I even looked at a photo of his wife that got divorced. I mean, even at her old age, she was still somewhat attractive. So he had an attractive wife. He had everything you possibly want out of life. It's just he had these dark urges that he had to freaking get a hold of.
yeah, and and I think too, it's like, and you'll even see it nowadays, where somebody will grow up in church, they're in the choir or they're on the praise and worship teams, or they'll say, you know, that they believe in the sanctity of marriage or whatever, and just they make, you know, they start associating with the wrong people or somebody that, I mean, somebody says the right thing to them, and next thing you know, they're going down that rabbit hole, and then all of a sudden you've got all these latent narcissistic or codependent or, sadistic, tendencies coming to the surface. And it's always that, and this guy really kind of exemplifies the whole, he was a nice guy, or,
Yeah.
I would have never seen that coming out of him or her. That's the last person I would have expected. They were so nice, and that fit in with a lot of his, like, especially with his last attempted murder, or murder attempt with Odell. He took her to an all-night diner, bought her a steak, uh, and convinced her, hey, let's, I'll give you some extra money for A, B, and C.
Yeah, I just want to figure out. It's like one point, it's like someone in his childhood is like, you know what? I'm going to grow up to be a serial killer. What are the things I need to do? And I'm like, you don't see that with this guy.
Well, I think too that narcissism and sadism really kind of have a lot of in common. Where you look at your stereotypical, sadists, whether it be men or women, it doesn't matter. It doesn't discriminate. They'll look for the people that are challenging to them, and then as soon as they use them up, they paint those people as the aggressors, and then here they are, the victim, and then they move on to the next, and then that's where they get their power from. That's where they get their kicks from. Sadists are kind of the same way. They look for that challenge, and they look for something that's going to give them that thrill, that sense of control. So there may have been something going on, with his married life or whatever, or maybe something to do with his home life when he was growing up, where he was never really in control of anything, and this is unfortunately, the one thing that made him feel like he was in control. You know, he's like, I'll put my pants on when I'm out doing this crap, you know. And it gave him that sense of release, for lack of a better term.
I guess you can call it that.
But, you know, that wasn't necessarily, I think, unlike with the nurse, I forget her name right now, Vicky Jackson, Thompson, something like that.
Vixie Dawn Jackson.
Yeah, Vicky Jackson, where she was just
She's
a sociopath. Yeah, I mean, she didn't really care to see the world burn. She was, in her mind, she was doing things. She was bringing justice.
Yeah.
She was bringing that balance. He was more of a psychopath, you know, because he knew that there was consequences involved because he was taking steps to avoid being caught. And
he know this is going to be his part-time job.
Yeah.
In a sense. And it sucks to think about it that way. But that's what some of those people think. It's like, oh, this is my second job. I have to go kill today.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, no, man, I'm booked, you know.
Yeah, this weekend, yeah, I'm gonna go into town, pick up a hooker, take her to, take her to eat and everything, treat her right, and then I'm gonna bound gag her and just treat her like the trash that she is.
You know, I mean, it's either that or he was just a Yankees fan growing up his entire life, and, you know.
Yeah, that time frame, they didn't really win anything.
Well, yeah, they didn't start winning anything really until 77. Yeah, was it 77? Reggie Jackson, Mr. October?
Yeah.
You know, I only say that to bring that up because I'm repping my Red Sox today. Yeah, you know. But, you know, go Sox. But, you know, I mean, like with Deidre Gazori's daughter, Jennifer Weiss, I mean, you brought that first article to my attention, and then I just started kind of branching out, looking at other source material.
I mean, there's photos of her just like giving him roses. You know, they're doing mock.
She like
photos of
where
her
she's where
him.
she's trying to choke him out. You know, and I was like, man, I can appreciate that level of humor.
And throughout this whole thing, you're just hearing that song, "Best Friends."
Yeah.
I'm like, no.
Yeah, right. You know, but I mean, her mom was found alongside that Jane Doe in '79 in that Times Square motel. She was beheaded, set on fire. They never found her skull. And she, from the, what did I say earlier? It was oxygen.com. That's where I found the article that I read. She started writing him before finally going to meet him in person. And she was quoted as saying that she had to build up a lot of forgiveness in her heart before going to see him. She now views him as more of a, quote, father figure. And she wanted to learn more about her mother. And, even though they've got an unusual relationship,
even in the
Weiss and Cottingham.
Yeah, in the video that I seen, it was basically to the point where she said, I was like, well, I don't think I would have been friends with him if he wasn't a serial killer. I don't think I probably would never even talk to him or anything like that. I was like, I wouldn't talk to him now. What? I mean, I understand where you're trying to. Yeah. It was that I understood where she was coming from first, and then it's still. I was like, if I got the information that I needed from him, I'd been out the door. I would never talk to him. I would move. I would everything I could do in my power where he could not find me ever again, just in case he got out.
Just in case. But, I think that they've built up that rapport. Prison officials even stated that since that relationship between the two of them, the friendship and now relationship, not sexual, obviously, as a result of that relationship, he started to show signs of empathy. And she's actually told him, because she visits him frequently. There was at one point she visited him 30 times over the course of 2 or 3 months. She helps him do things like figure out how to use his iPad. She just comes in.
iPad in prison?
Hey, when you're in prison that long.
Of course, that is New Jersey.
We had New Jersey, New York, yeah. She's taken several pictures with him, we went over. And she feels closer to her mother now because of the conversations that she's had with him about her. So, that kind of leads to the idea that he knew her prior to, him killing her, and maybe even lead some credence to, to the idea that maybe they had a relationship, prior to, and they're because she's even come out and said that she thinks that there might be a chance that Cottingham is her biological dad, her biological father. They've never taken a paternity test, and I don't know that they will. But because, based on what I was able to find, there still wasn't one taken, at least as of the date of that article. But she has gotten him to actually confess to other murders. And let me see here.
Yeah, because that was the other thing that she was trying to do. She was trying to get closure for a lot of other people.
Yeah,
too.
and so those three additional women that he killed in '69 that he admitted to, that I had mentioned earlier, Jacqueline Harp, Irene Blas, and Denise Falsco, those were cold cases. And I guess the MO didn't fit. But like with any serial killer that we'll end up talking about, or, anyone that's been researched in the past, it's usually the beginning, the first killings, where there's a bit of disjointedness there, because they're trying to figure out what their niche is, what their calling card's going to be. And while there may have been some similarities between those three women as it relates to the rest of them, they couldn't tie these together. And so when he admitted to it, he never told them where the bodies were or anything like that. He just says, "Yeah, I admitted to, I admit to killing those girls," and and like that Jane Doe that was found with Goodsari, Helen Sykes, was a missing persons case. They found her body. She was identified or whatever. She was never identified, never found. The body was. They were trying to say that Jane Doe was Helen Sykes, but I think that through DNA testing later on, they figured out that it wasn't, because that was one of his original charges. He's still stuck with that Jane Doe that was found with Goodsari, but they've never figured out what was going on with Helen Sykes or who killed her or anything like that, or even if she's dead, But there. I mean, I want to. I think that it's really kind of an interesting thing that Jennifer Weiss reached out to him. And, I mean, I understand that she wanted to have some sort of closure. She wanted to learn more about her mom, but the way that relationship between the two of them really has kind of just taken off a little bit. I mean, now looking at him like he's a father figure, I don't know if that's some kind of, because you said that she was adopted earlier before we started filming, but and I'm like, okay, so there wasn't a lack of a father figure in her life, at least
it might
a
just
consistent
be,
one.
It might just be the Stockholm syndrome, because
to a degree, yeah.
It's starting to sound more and more like Stockholm syndrome. Once you know your aggressor a little bit more, you come find to sympathize to them more.
Yeah.
And in a lot of cases, that's the only thing you can come around to it is that it's not really understanding to me, because I never really got that. I've always had that thing. It's like, oh, this person is bad. I'm gonna have to deal with them and everything like that. But when it comes to it, I can just drop ties really fast.
Yeah.
Or a lot of people, what they do is in situations like that is they find some kind of, it's like, I'm only doing this for this reason why I'm keeping this person that is obviously a bad influence. And a lot of people, it's relationships. They have terrible relationships and they do that. And that's what a lot of people don't understand about Stockholm syndrome is they're not seeing the bad. They're seeing the good, and that's where they're focusing on.
Yeah. And how, okay, so like serial murderers or murderers, period, usually if they target somebody, they're fleshing them out. I know that that's probably a bad term to use, but when he was arrested, when the hotel or motel staff called when they heard Odell screaming. When he was arrested, he had handcuffs, a leather gag, 2 slave collars, a switchblade, replica pistols, and a stockpile of prescription pills. So I mean, that's where all that controlled substances stuff was. And he had a trophy room where he kept the personal effects. So he was a collector. So I think it would said that he was a psychopath, and I think that really works for him because he was proud of his work.
Yeah, it's
No, but not to the point where he, like the Zodiac Killer was communicating with the police through cryptic, want ads or whatever, or mail, where he wanted to get caught. No, I mean he took steps deliberately took steps to try to keep from getting caught, like taking hands and heads and to prevent the bodies from being identified. But
yeah, and I know that stuff doesn't work.
yeah,
And I had like 4 years ago, the same thing happened kind of to me. Not people finding out. It was the fact of this person had murdered this 18-month-old kid, and I had babysitter, took care of her. I mean, there was times that the mother wouldn't even pick her up for like a week, and I was in contact with the grandmother and everything. We were trying to get the baby to the grandmother and all kinds of stuff, and come to find out that she was being abused and everything. Finally, the boyfriend smashed the baby's skull, killed her. The doctors had to pull the plug because she was just basically brain dead at that point.
yeah,
But the mother and boyfriend kept the baby technically on ice for, this happened in August, and it wasn't until October where we were allowed to bury the body, and she's buried in the pauper's grave. We wanted to bury her in an actual grave area and everything like that. I mean, the grandmother was constant contact and everything. I was literally a person that literally clothed her for the last time before she was put in the grave. And their thing was the mother tried to get aggressive with me one time. She's like, I can't believe you tried to stop us from not having to stop to have the baby cremated. It's like, no, it was you. We had all the steps. We were willing to cremate the child, the baby, and just to get the stuff over with, so we can stop our grieving.
yeah,
And we can heal. And she was stopping that. That to this day, she those people literally had to get out of my life, or I would have. I don't even know what kind of person I would have been out there after that. After a while.
yeah. I mean, and we could try to go into the, how do we prevent things like that? How do we screen for this? And honestly, I don't know that there is.
No, you can't, because look at even our career fields when we're in the military.
Yeah.
If at any point in time that you went into combat, you had to come back, and you had to go through a psychiatrist, and you already knew the answers
Yeah.
to keep yourself in the game, into combat, and working. You already knew the answers. And most of these people that do the killings and everything, they already know the answers.
Yeah, they're intelligent. I mean, they're incredibly intelligent. And they're very meticulous about, the order of things. And you just kind of look at them and you're like, what if they had taken that same exuberism, that same energy, and that same tenacity that they put towards doing these horrific things, and they had actually done something constructive towards,
like trying to cure cancer.
Yeah, I mean, where would we be as a society if we'd had A, B, and C? But I think, while we have those really great examples of just great human beings, throughout course of history, whether it be Madame Curie or even Nobel, the guy that invented dynamite. I mean, we, or even Robert Goddard, the father basically of rocket science. We're going to have that.
Or Mother Teresa.
Or Mother Teresa, yes. Let's go ahead and throw Mother Teresa in there. We've got those great examples of humans throughout the course of our history being standouts as far as like being contributors. I just think ultimately it's maybe a balance thing. I'm not entirely sure. I mean, it's kind of like there's really, without sounding too theological on it. I mean, it's the human race is being fought over. It's a huge spiritual battlefield. Between claiming souls for the kingdom of God and claiming souls for hell.
It's that one thing. It's like, how do you know good if you don't know evil?
Yeah, it's that moral code. I mean, you'll get atheists that'll tell you, like, well, you can be a good person without knowing God. Well, true, but what are you basing your morality off of? What are you using as the standard? Where's that line in the sand, so to speak, that says this is good, this is bad, it's acceptable, not acceptable. This makes me a horrible person, this makes me a good person. Are you one of these, I'm just going to be a nihilist and try to write it down the middle, and...
But you also have the case like this guy right here, to the point where he knew all the stuff that he was doing should have been bad, because I couldn't find anything that showed that he had a horrible life.
Yeah, and I think for him, at first at least, it was just the thrill, the thrill of the hunt, the thrill to kill, and he was keeping those trophies in his house, and it really, I think, whether it had been maybe because he was going through a separation at the time and eventually got divorced when he got arrested, but I think initially maybe there was something lacking in his life, at least in his mind's eye, and he was just looking for that validation. And instead of seeking it externally, he was looking for an internal source, i.e., himself. And so, like they say that when you do something yourself and you accomplish something you didn't think you could do before, you get the most satisfaction out of it. I think he just went onto the perverse side of the spectrum for that, and he went down that road. And then once he experienced the first kill, it really kind of, it flooded him with all of those good I say good endorphins, and it flooded him with all those endorphins, all that adrenaline, and that's just that's the very, very few things in the world that would be comparable to that rush. And it's like, dude, go find something safer and legal to do, like skydiving, or, go base jumping, be a pioneer there, it's like, come on.
Or work out.
Yeah, or you just go to work out, and like with a lot of guys and even women that come back from overseas or come back from the military just in general, or even law enforcement, first responders, that they'll use that as their outlet. And, they'll go to the gym and they'll basically live there. And it's not that that's what becomes the thing that defines them. It's something that they're able to receive that personal gratification, and it's an outlet, at a certain point. But I think a lot of it is just, hey, I'm doing something to accomplish things for myself. And on a very weird scale, I think that with Cottingham, at least, his first kills were like, I didn't think I could do that, and I like the way that it makes me feel. There, where up until he got caught, with Odell, who just basically ruined the party for him, he was getting sloppy because he started to feel a little bit complacent, and that rush.
Was going down.
Right, with like a drug addict, it's like, you got to take a higher and higher and higher dose every time you do it to get the same effect, because your body's building up that tolerance.
Yeah, and I know most drug addicts, once they start doing because they'll start up like one pill and then they'll end up with like 16.
Yeah, and I think that was probably another reason why he got caught, is that he stepped outside of his MO. He tried to change things up and to try to achieve that high, that rush, by attacking the one thing that gave it to him from a different angle. Like, okay, I'm going to step up the degree of difficulty here.
Yeah, because we don't know on the other from the other victims if he did the same thing he did with his last victim
Right.
that survived.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give you a meal. I'm going to treat you right. I'm going to do everything I can possibly can to make you feel that you're in a safe place, and I'm just going to crush it down and just ruin it, rain fire.
Yeah, and it kind of, and the thought just occurred to me that maybe like the situation with Leslie Odell, that he was trying to make it personal again, which kind of leads back to Gazzari, with the suspicion, or at least the assumption, that maybe he knew her prior to, which is why Jennifer Weiss thinks that there's a possibility that he's her biological father. Is that
I seriously doubt that.
Yeah, I do too, but
the time frame doesn't add up.
It does a little bit if you look at the dates, but getting back to that point where I think he was trying to make it personal, like it was with Gazzari. Like, there was potentially he maybe have had at least an association, or some kind of a relationship with Gazzari before he killed her. And it was like maybe he was trying to recreate that, try to maybe hit that hard reboot button where, okay, instead of doing things differently, I'm going to try to do things old school, get personal, get them relaxed, and then kill them, just to kind of give him some, hey, I put time into this, so it was really a challenge, and like kind of trip his mind into thinking, hey, look, this is the way we need to do things now. So had Leslie Odell, had she been killed, had he not been caught,
He would have still been going on.
Yeah, it potentially could still be going on. Play that what if game all day long, but I think he was really trying to come back into his MO, and he was really trying to refine it and trying to complicate it to the point where it would have had investigators chasing their tails for years, and yeah, it's a possibility that we could be talking about him as like a current event, like, hey, well, they just caught this guy and he's been killing people since 69 or 67. But I think that really, he was just looking to try to like recreate that rush from the initial killings.
Yeah.
So, but that's,
I can see how that initial rush and everything would just keep on going. But could you imagine the thinking? I was like, I didn't kill this person the right way. Maybe if I just do it a little bit different this time. And it's a horrible way to think of things, but
yeah.
that's probably their mindset. It's like, I stabbed him like this. Maybe if I stab him with my
Come
left
at him a little bit
hand,
smoother. Yeah. And in no way, shape, form, or fashion am I trying to equate gaming to serial murders. No, don't take it that way.
I was about saying something about hunting too.
But it's like, okay, like with gamers, you'll get guys that they'll beat the crap out of a game and then they'll try to do it in a speed run, or they'll beat the game and then they'll go back and they'll put it on its hardest setting and they'll try to do everything humanly possible throughout the game, and then try to figure out ways to beat the program in the game, to beat it a different way. It's like thinking outside the box, but to get that same gratification from something that you really find that you enjoy. And with this guy, I guess, he found something that he loved. The takeaway is not that he found something that he enjoyed. It's what he found that he enjoyed. Yeah. But I really think that there's like we said earlier, there's really no way that we're going to be able to ever screen for that kind of a thing. Yeah, there's little telltales, in personality screenings and stuff like that. But even
those you can't really get.
yeah, even with profiles that we've had around since the 60s and 70s, they're not definitive. They're not concrete.
Yeah, they even did. I can't remember if it was MRI or they were basically taking a scan of a serial killer and a scan of like a hunter or a person that's seen combat and see if they have any kind of commonalities and everything, see if they can do something with that. Yeah. And they still can't figure out, hey, this area right here is getting flagged as a good thing, or the person in the combat was like, oh, he saw combat. The only thing they can actually definitely say, and I was like, okay, that endorphins and adrenaline were spiking at this point in time because they were talking about this. And sometimes those killers don't even have that.
Yeah, sometimes
they don't even feel anything.
Yeah, the sociopaths, you know, I mean, they're just completely without remorse. They don't care, you know, and they're just like, I'm doing it just to do it. It's almost like they're bored.
Yeah.
You know, but I think the common thread amongst a majority of the serial killers out there, even career criminals, is that for the most part, they are incredibly intelligent. I mean, highly intelligent, and they have a propensity that's unique to things like problem solving. And you know, so I mean, they're going to be able to get into all of these different situations and think their way out of them. Look at Ted Bundy. You know, he represented himself. And I think the first time he actually did get off, you know, I could be mistaken. You know, I have to do some more research on it. But, you know, he was an intelligent guy. He used his propensity for gab, you know, his gift of speech to get himself into and out of a lot of situations. You know, up until he made a mistake and got caught. You know, I mean, and we hate to say it that way, but it's like that's what it all boils down to, is that these people that are guilty of committing these crimes, they just make a mistake. As you sit there and type away.
I was looking at the Ted Bundy stuff. No, he escaped arrest. He escaped from custody twice. I don't know. I have to divvy in. We'll go on.
Well, even
Ted
then,
Bundy.
That's still
you
problem
know,
solving.
we could still go. We can go on Ted Bundy next week.
Yeah, let's do that. I mean, God, you talk about the amount of source material for Ted Bundy alone is just
even the dating show that he was on.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
One of the the person was like, she came about this close of being murked.
Yeah, you know, and it's like he had, was it like he had a wife in one town and he was always going out of town?
Oh, we'll get to the other one.
Yeah, but it's like, man, you know, but these people, they've got such a high degree of intelligence and propensity for things like problem solving, you know, but it's like, how did you make that connection to doing this as opposed to going over here and doing that? You know, it's like...
Well, okay, think about it this way. Mike Glover, not to shine anything down on him or up on him, when he was talking about Green Beret training.
Yeah.
He was talking about... Because there's part of their training to where they basically take over a town.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a yearly thing that people go with lawn chairs and check it out and everything like that. And he couldn't understand, because he was just basically helping build a fence for a chicken coop. And he was putting in pipes to get water to it and everything like that. And he was like, why am I doing this? And then finally, after the farmer says, like, hey, you need to hide. Well, basically, it's, I can't remember what the, getting rapport with the locals to actually want your help.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of training and that kind of area. A lot of people don't look at it that way until you have the problem actually at hand.
Yeah.
Or robbing a bank. You know, what's the benefit of this? I mean, it's just high quality problem solving, and to see if you can get out of that situation.
Yeah, yeah. So it just it's like whenever whenever we were in school, you'd always hear the teachers go, "You are smart, but if you would just learn to apply yourself." It's like, well, they're applying themselves. They're just not applying themselves properly.
Well, I got lucky at times with a lot of my teachers, especially like my English teacher in junior high.
Mm-hmm.
She literally saw the potential of me actually writing. She was like, "You could be the greatest writer I've ever seen with the ideas that you have. You just have to get over that hump." And I still, to this day, I'll write something. And there's a lot of writers that have the same problem I do, is they have to go back and forth. I'm gonna look at JJ. What was his name? The guy that did Game of Thrones. George R. R. Martin.
Yes, yeah.
He was having a conversation with Stephen King, and George R. R. Martin was like, "How many pages do you do a day?" He's like, on average, probably about 5 or 6. He's like, "I can't even do one." And it's just the difference in that kind of personality and that kind of dedications to their writing.
Yeah. Like, if you like Stephen King, you'll see him, now that they're going to let fans back in the stands during the regular season, like home games at Fenway, Stephen King will be sitting his ass right there in those stands, and he'll usually have like a laptop or something in there, or he'll bring a book, and he'll read or he'll write while he's sitting at the Red Sox games.
You ever hear his band?
No.
Stephen King has a band.
He has a band.
With other writers.
Huh.
It is like reading his book. It is a horrific thing. but they do it for charity and everything. I mean, it's like, I didn't know cats. I didn't know people actually want to listen to cats getting, screaming at each other at night or fighting. But
some people, especially people that live in big cities, I mean, that's how they go to sleep, man. So it's just the ambient sound, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I guess we can call this a day on this one. We'll end this one. And check out our Facebook page. We have a Facebook page. We have the Instagram. We got all the, well, except for Twitter. I don't want to even get on Twitter anymore. But we got a website for T-shirts and everything like that. If you want to check us out, leave a comment, like, share. If you want to tell us how ugly we are or how horrible we are at doing this, go ahead. It actually benefits us. It's weird. But I'm David Dickerman.
And I'm Johnny Skelton.
And this is Psychos and Sociopaths. Thank you for watching. Bye.